Three, two. Hey everybody, welcome back to another episode of the Pikes Place podcast. I'm Alec Crouthamel, and alongside me, my co-host Mike Bash. Rutgers basketball is 2 games into the season. We're going to talk about that, how the players looked, and much more in this episode. Again, be sure to follow along on Spotify or wherever you get your podcasts, or YouTube as well. We'll have, of course, video and audio both. But yeah, Rutgers is 2 games into the season. 2-0 now after wins over Wagner and Saint Peter's. I guess first, any big thoughts, big picture thoughts from these first 2 games?
I guess I could say Lathan Somerville is an absolute dog. So that's my first thought. But no, I mean it's kind of what we expected. I would think. I think last night the St. Peter's game kind of got people's blood pressure going a little bit. But other than that, I mean I'm not really surprised about much. Dylan's been as advertised. We haven't seen Ace yet. But everything else is pretty much what you would expect with Rutgers basketball and what comes with it.
Yeah, that game last night against St. Peter's, it was a little closer than I'm sure people would have
Oh,
liked, closer than I would have liked, of course. But they did win by 10. The X factor, I think, in that game was putting Zach Martini at center for the last 4 minutes. In those 4 minutes, Rutgers outscored St. Peter's 11-0. Went on that 11-0 run to close the game. St. Peter's missed their last 8 shots from the floor. And it wasn't even just like Martini was there. He was just kind of in the game and there. No, he was making a big impact. I think they had 3 straight drives to the rim. Martini went up with them all and didn't get called for a foul either and impacted those shots. So um, I guess the Zach Martini at the 5 minutes are not just a potential that we'll see. It's something that we will see a lot as the season goes on.
yeah, Martini, is the small ball five. He definitely is one of those guys that plays bigger than he's listed. I think he's 6'7", 6'8". But as Pike said to people in the court club, and I'm sure people in the media throughout the summer, Martini loves to hit people. He throws his body around. He loves to hustle. Jordan Durkak's kind of the same way, albeit a smaller guy in that sense, but sometimes those are that's the difference between getting to a loose ball. It's the difference between winning and losing a game. Sometimes it's just making those hustle plays, and Martini's brought that from his Princeton days, and I'm happy. What I saw of him. It's kind of funny when we did bring him in, we saw his like analytical shot chart, and it was like all this guy does is take 3-pointers and layups. And I don't think I've seen him do anything. I don't even think I've seen him take a hook shot yet. Like, it's been 3-pointers, layups, put backs, anything around the rim or anything outside the arc. So he's been a good addition. I haven't seen him get, yeah, he's not a rim protector, so like we do miss that when he's at the five. But other than that, he's been as advertised, and I'm happy with what he's brought so far.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's the biggest part of this Rutgers team so far, being as advertised. Obviously, we haven't seen Ace Bailey yet, like you said. It's looking like he's tracking to play on Friday against Monmouth. I guess we'll just have to wait and see at this point. Jonathan Givony from ESPN did say it was a hip flexor injury, so I guess that's what it is. So nothing too major, I guess. Uh, he Givony said, I think it was in his mock draft, his latest mock draft, something like that. It said it was about a 2 week or so injury, but according to Peichel, he injured it last Monday in practice. So I guess that would put him to coming back around probably Merrimack. But from what I can tell, it seems like he should play on Friday against Monmouth. So I guess we'll just have to wait and see. But yeah, it's been as advertised. I think I guess the question, what do you think this offense will do differently once Ace Bailey's back?
Well, I think East Bailey helps you um, in two folds. One, it's another guy that, right now with Dylan, it's everyone collapse on Dylan, and he's either got to just be unreal and get to the basket through contact, or he's got to find an open shooter. Now, Ace Bailey might not be Cam Spencer or what we've seen PJ Hayes. He might not be the knockdown shooter that would be ideal to play alongside, but he's going to make his shots. But it's another guy that can hit shots, can create his own shot, can bail you out in late clock situations, and obviously as an athlete, he's going to help defensively. He's going to help with rebounding, but he's going to help with all around defense, causing turnovers, getting because Ace and Dylan and Jamichael Davis and Jeremiah Williams, we have a lot of athletes on the team. They want to get out in transition. Um, Pike loves to play slow ball, but when you got guys, when you got to let these thoroughbreds run. So I think Ace is going to bring, shot making, obviously we know, athleticism, obviously we know, but it's going to be everything, the whole package. I mean, we're playing the first two games of the season, and we've been okay. We haven't been amazing, but we're going to insert the projected number two pick in the draft, a guy who can go number one if he has a special season. So that's not like, oh, we're plugging in Noah Fernandez or Derek Simpson into the lineup. No, we're plugging in a guy that might be a 10, 15-year NBA veteran when it's all said and done. So, um, yeah, I think he can help. He's going to make everything better. He's one of those guys, you put him on the court, everyone around him is going to play better. It's
Yeah.
also going to slide everyone besides Dylan down a peg in the rotation, but in the duties and the responsibility.
Yeah, definitely. And I'm very curious to see how that works out. Speaking of Derek Simpson, he had a nice 15 points as St. Joe's took down Villanova tonight. It might be over for Cal Neptune. But that's neither here nor there. That's down in Philly where they're dealing with that. But yeah, I guess looking more so into last night's game, the defensive effort and intensity and some of the rotations really weren't there in that first half. They gave up 42 points to a sub 200 offense in Ken Palm. Not a great showing in that first half, and Steve Peichel was a little facetious in his post-game presser. He was asked what the message was in the halftime locker room, and he said something along the lines of, "It was very quiet. I didn't want to yell at them. I wanted to go easy on them. I went up to all of them. I hugged them and told them how much I appreciated their lousy defense." And then obviously we saw what happened in that second half, limiting them just 23 points.
Yeah, you beat me to it there. I mean, um, 42 points in the first half. They're hitting. Now, on one hand, you're like, wow, they're hitting all these threes, but they were hitting wide open threes. And we've seen this game from Rutgers in the past where they don't play with intensity. Now, I don't know if it was St. Peter's. I don't know, being no disrespect to St. Peter's, but when you look across the way and you see St. Peter's, it's a little different than when you see Indiana or if you see Illinois or Michigan State or Purdue. So maybe they took them lightly. Maybe they played down to their opponent, but you gave them open shots. They hit them early, and you know what the biggest performance enhancing drug out of them all is confidence. Confidence and adrenaline can take you farther than steroids. So you guys start hitting wide open shots, they start playing better. The ball starts moving crisper. The rotations keep getting longer and longer. And what happens? They play themselves to a 5 point lead. Now Dylan came out in the first 90 seconds of the first second half and said, "All right, guys, let's go." And we kind of, we went back and forth, but at the end of the day, we won the game, and that's all that matters. But it was definitely a game that you don't want more than one of those this season. You want to get through the rest of the cupcake schedule unscathed. And I can't even. I was talking to somebody else earlier. I don't blame Pike for that last night. The team just refused to execute for long stretches. I didn't think it was a poorly coached game. And people are going to say, "Oh, Ogboli, he played 10 minutes." I thought he gave you a good 10 minutes. He got 3 points, four rebounds. One of those rebounds was BS, but that's neither here nor there. They gave him a rebound on a play that he got fouled and never actually grabbed the ball. But I'm the only sicko that looks at the stat sheet as soon as it happens. Um, but besides that, I mean, he gave you good energy, he gave you good minutes. I think he was like plus 12, which was nice to see. But I don't think it was a coaching thing. I think it was just execution.
Yeah, I'm willing to agree with that. And looking back at the stat sheet from last night, let's see, Agbole, he was, let me see if I can pull up the plus minus
I think he was
numbers.
plus 12.
Yeah, you're right. He was plus 12. And yeah, also three of the four rebounds he had were offensive rebounds, which is really big to just get more opportunities on the floor. Yeah, I guess we can do an idea that you had where you go stock up, stock down, so we can list three players, or I guess either players or parts of the team that you're feeling better about since the start of the season, and then three that you're not feeling as better about. So yeah, I guess we can go optimism first. What are three either players or I guess parts of the team that you're feeling better about after the first two games?
Well, stock up. I think the first one's obvious, as I said in the open, Lathan Somerville. Granted, it's been Wagner and Saint Peter's. It's a different story than when you play, the big boys in the Big Ten, like Malik Renew and Mo Bakbo, or I can never pronounce his name, but I'm trying to say, and all the other guys that come in the Big Ten. But you know, he's blocking shots. Like I think he has multiple blocks in both games. He's great. He's battling for rebounds, battling inside. He's hit 6 out of 7 free throws. He hit a 3-pointer. Now, granted, it was probably the luckiest bounce I've ever seen in a college basketball game, but we'll take it. But everyone's was worried, oh, he's going to need a year, he's going to need half a year. No, I think he's ready today. I mean, he's pretty much taken the starting job away from Okbole. I've always played 15 minutes in 2 games, and Somerville played 25 last night. I don't know his numbers for game one, but I'm sure he played 20 minutes or 22 minutes or something like that. So that's number one. He needs to not have tunnel vision when he gets the ball in the post, but other than that, he's been great. Number two stock up is PJ Hayes. He had 7 rebounds last night. I mean, we've seen him. He could shoot the ball with the best of them, but I think we even saw against St. John's. He could put the ball in the hole or put the ball on the floor and get to the hole. So I'm very high on PJ Hayes. And number three is I got to give it to Jordan Durkak. I mean, my buddy coached Martini and Durkak, and when I asked him like, "Hey, give me a scouting report," he said Durkak and his younger brother too. They're kind of similar molds of players, but he said about Jordan, he goes, he's Paul Mulcahy with a jetpack. Now Paul Mulcahy is clearly a better passer, playmaker, but he's kind of guy is gonna you look at the stat sheet at the end of the game, 9 points, 5 rebounds, 2 steals, 3 assists, whatever. He does a little everything. He's sneaky athletic. He's scrappy, and I think he's a good secondary ball handler, a guy that does that can help Dylan and not and because one thing in the offseason everyone's like, oh, Dylan's going to bring the ball 95% of the time. No, they're not making him fight the press. They're letting Jeremiah Williams do that and Jordan Durkak do that, which then gives Dylan the opportunity to have the energy late in games and take over like he did last night, which I think is great coaching and planning by Pike.
Yeah, I actually kind of took all three of mine, so I'll see if I can find something else. I guess one thing that I'll spot in particular for Jordan Durkak, his passing last night was really on point. Particularly, it was early in the second half. He's posting up, he's at the elbow, and then he just turns around and whips a pass over to Zach Martini in the corner, who's open and drains a three. I thought that was really impressive. Even against Wagner, I thought his passing was very impressive, and his ability to just get to the rim, like just put his head down and go to the rim by any means necessary, I've been really impressed with so far. Um, the shooting, Jerry's kind of still out on that one. I don't think he's going to be he hasn't been a very good shooter. He wasn't a very good shooter at Merrimack last year. It's just kind of one of those things that they're going to have to live with. Obviously, the obvious one, like you said, Lathan Somerville as well. I guess if I had to point out one thing in particular, it's been his effort in the rebounding game. Against Wagner, he was high point. He wasn't even just getting these easy rebounds. He was going up in traffic as well and getting them. He had 4 rebounds last night. PJ Hayes, like you said, led the way with 7. He also had 3 assists for PJ Hayes. So that was pretty impressive too. So yeah, back to Lathan. I mean, the way that he has been able to adjust and play defense as well, that's always the big question mark with Lathan coming into the season was his defense and rebounding. And I think at the very least on the rebounding end, he has definitely passed with flying colors. I agree that when he gets the ball in the post, he tends to try to do a little bit too much. But that's not unexpected with a true freshman. I'll say that. So I think he'll continue to adjust it as the season goes on. And yeah, I mean PJ Hayes, you kind of put it spot on there. I'll say everything else around PJ Hayes because we knew he could shoot coming in, but the question was going to be what else is he going to be able to do? And we saw that last night. Obviously, leading the team in rebounding with 7 rebounds, and then he also has shown the ability to run the floor, be a ball handler in transition as well. And like you said, get to the rim. He had, I think it was against Wagner, a beautiful backdoor cut where Dylan found him right under the basket. Um, and he put in an easy 2 points. That's something else that we've seen from this offense that we didn't really see last year. A lot of cutting, just movement towards the basket without the ball in your hands. And I think the fact that you have Dylan, the fact that you have a guy like PJ who's played anywhere and everywhere in his college career has been huge for that in the offense. And that's how you manufacture easy looks instead of just putting your head down and going to the rim and going up over 3 guys.
Yeah. No, I agree with you, and I think with PJ Hayes, and I kind of thought this when we got him, is it's one thing if he like I don't want to compare him to Cam Spencer, just like because they're totally different players. Cam Spencer is a guard, more of a guard. He's more of a wing. But the fact that we brought him in and I think he's like 6'6", right? He's like 6'6", 6'7", is he's athletic enough that okay, he's not going to be jumping over people. But it's like with Paul, right? 6'6" and 6'7" helps you get rebounds. Even if he chips in 4 rebounds a game or 3.5 rebounds a game, it helps you not get dominated on the boards. Even if he doesn't get the rebound, he's tall enough to tip it out to a guard or something. So I that's what I like, the fact that he can shoot and the fact that he's 6'6", 6'7", and or maybe 6'5", 6'6", but he's not 6'2", and it's not like, oh crap, he can only be a point guard. Like, no, he can play 2, 3, 4, and really contribute all around, and I like that. I guess to go stock down, we're gonna go PJ Hayes' dad on Twitter because
I knew you were gonna bring that up at some point. I will
um,
say he when I wrote my like kind of feature story on him after media day, he did DM me and say I did a great job. So he has some positivity in my book at least.
I didn't really see what happened, and I think he was a little misconstrued. I don't think he was really attacking Pike or anything. I think he was just venting some frustrations at a close game. We'll go Emmanuel Ogbole, which is kind of an obvious one, and I'm going to go Jeremiah Williams. I already explained the Hayes dad thing. We'll move past that, but Ogbole, listen, I think we all knew, anyone who watches basketball, anyone who has any eye for talent can see the kid doesn't have the tools. I don't want to say he doesn't have the tools. He's too raw for this team. He's a huge body, and I thought he played well yesterday. If he does what he did yesterday, I'm fine with it. He played aggressive. He was big. He didn't like automatically foul. But game 1 was kind of like, I'm like, dude, what is wrong with this guy? Like, what are we doing here? So I'm being a little harsh, but I have to be in on him because right now he is the starting center, even though minutes wise it's been Lathan Somerville. Jeremiah Williams, I think something's up with the shoulder more than just like, oh, he's wearing a brace. I think I've watched him shoot warm ups, and his shot is like so high arcing right now. I think his shoulder's bothering him, but he's also playing a little out of control. Now he got bailed out on that like over the shoulder assist to Lathan Somerville. I don't know if that was a shot or a pass, but he's got to play under better control. He's also adapting to a different role. And I asked Pike this question at the court club of how does he adapted to going from being the leader of the offense, the on-ball guy, to kind of being an off-ball guy where he's not a shooter and he's not a wing. So like asking him to be a cutter isn't maybe the most ideal situation for him. I think as the season progresses, he's a good enough player. He'll adapt. He'll figure it out. He'll be fine. But just for stock down, those are my three guys.
Yeah, I think once again you kind of hit it there. Um, Yeah, I'm not really sure what's up with Jeremiah Williams. It seems like you said, he's playing a little bit out of control in terms of driving to the rim when, maybe you could kick it out, things like that. Um, but yeah, like you said, he's a good player. He's a smart enough player. He'll figure it out, I think, as the season goes on. Um, yeah, Agbole, the problem is like you said, he's too raw. He has all of the tools physically, and Michael has said this himself too. He is 6'10", 280, like what was it, like 4 or 5% body fat, something ridiculous like that. Like the guy is absolutely jacked. But unfortunately, he just hasn't gotten the experience to fully grasp. I don't want to say fully grasp. He hasn't been able to get down a lot of the main aspects of like knowing where you're supposed to be, using your body the right way. It feels like when he boxes out, he's not always in the right base, I would say. Um, and I'm sure the more time he spends on the floor and the more time he spends working on practice and things like that, he's going to figure it out because he's just, he has the size, obviously, in the frame. But the question is, does Rutgers have the time to let him do that on the floor? And I say no, because this is the season that you go all in for, and you don't have time to let someone kind of work through it because obviously that's going to lead to struggles on the floor when they're still working through it, especially when you have a guy like Lathan Somerville who's performing so far, and then you have a guy like a change of pace guy like a Zach Martini who can sub in every now and then at the five. So it's just a matter of I don't think Rutgers has the time to let him kind of keep on developing slowly as the season goes on. Excuse me. And then I guess for the third one, I'll go with something more team oriented rather than just a player. I mean, looking at the 3-point shooting, it's been a bit disappointing so far. 3 for 16 last night, 19%. Definitely not what you want to see. Again, getting Ace back will definitely help with that. But looking at, I think Dylan Harper, he's too good of a shooter, and he's too good of a reputation to not improve as a shooter. He went 1 for 6 from three last night. I think he was 1 for 4 in the opener. He definitely helped his free throw shooting. After going 1 for 6 against Wagner, he shot 7 for 8 last night. Looking at some of the other 3-point shooters from yesterday, 0 for 2 for Jeremiah Williams, 1 for 3 for Zach Martini, 1 for 3 for PJ Hayes, 0 for 1 for Tyson Acuff. A lot of this stuff is the more they'll shoot and the more they get comfortable within the offense, I think it'll fix itself. I don't think this is going to be the best shooting team in the country, but if they get it, some of their more special shooters, some of those looks, and try to shy away from some of the guys who are better, more so at the rim, I think that'll improve as well.
Yeah, yeah. I think with Ogbole, it's the one thing that frustrated me, I don't know if you've noticed this, is I noticed like he'll get like caught out of the paint on a shot, like whatever. His defender brings him out and he's at the 3-point line. He's not crashing the boards. He's like standing like at the Jersey Mike symbol. And I'm like, what are you doing? Like you're not gonna go get the home run pass. So like he should be crashing on every shot that the opponent throws up. He should be crashing the boards. That's how you use your 6'11", 280-pound frame. Not standing at the 3-point line waiting for a breakout pass. But that's just me. Not the coach, just a fan. Um, Passionate fan. But that's my one what are you doing kind of moment there. Um, but other than that, yeah, like I said, I mean, those are just a pick three. I mean, I picked two guys and made a joke about Twitter, so I didn't really pick a third guy. But it's not. I don't think we're in a position to hit panic or freak out. I think the first two games showed a lot of good and a lot that we can clean up.
Right. Yeah. And I think it's important. I said this when Richie and I recorded the Night Report podcast earlier today as well. Something to keep in mind. These are lower level teams, low major teams, but they're also higher level, low major teams, if that makes sense. Like these are teams that have been to the NCAA tournament. These are teams that know how to win on their level, and they're going to bring their all. Like Bashir Mason said post game, I don't want to play Kentucky, Arizona, Gonzaga, all those other schools. I want to play Rutgers. I want to play St. John's. I want to play Seton Hall, and I want to play those types of schools. And I think, that's a great mindset to have because basketball in New Jersey, it's like, I mean, it's like it's a big fraternity that I think people need to kind of embrace more. And I mean, we already do a good job of embracing it, playing some of these teams, obviously, but you're going to get their all every single time, and they know how to win big games. So you're going to struggle in some of these games where you're still figuring stuff out, while, some other teams are more established and already have stuff figured out, and they're going to give everything they've got. And it's not going to get any easier in that regard. Granted, they're still playing some of the weaker teams on the schedule. Monmouth is 0-2. They're playing Northern Illinois, I think, right now, actually. They got destroyed by Temple in the Jersey Jam, and then they lost at the Breslin Center to Michigan State. And then Merrimack is another team. Ever since they entered D1, they've been on the verge of the NCAA tournament, if not for their rules. So yeah, you're going to get these teams all in certain games, and you're going to have to work through some of these things. And that's why you schedule some of these teams where it's not, you're not playing, I don't know, Mississippi Valley State or whatever, or Chicago State or whatever. You're playing lower level teams, teams that you clearly have a talent advantage over, but you're also testing yourself because these are teams that know how to win at those lower levels.
Yeah, you kind of touch on it, and I kind of have a theory about these, local mid-major teams, or I'm sorry, local low-major teams, whether it's, Wagner or Bryant or Monmouth or St. Peter's. They're all New York, New Jersey, Philly, Connecticut area teams, and we all know like everywhere in the country you go to play, there's different brands of basketball, right? New York's very rugged, very athlete central, tough, hard nosed, a lot of skills still, right? And then maybe you go to the middle of the country and it's shooting, spacing, not as athletic, but more like pure ball skills. And, you go down to like the South and it's pure athletes and guys that just can fly. And so you look at like, okay, Rutgers plays St. Peter's and beats them by 10, but then Iowa or any of the Big 12 schools play, SIU, Evansville, or Southeast Omaha or something like that, and they beat them 110-57. And it's like, well, how come Iowa can beat SIU, Topeka, by 40, and we're struggling with St. Peter's. Well, it's because St. Peter's is playing with a bunch of kids from Brooklyn and North Jersey and New York City, and they're going to play tougher, and they're going to be more athletic, and they're going to play a different brand of basketball than SIU, pick your city in middle of North Dakota, whatever. I don't even know what SIU stands for. I just keep saying it. But the point I'm getting at is like, right, you look at the Big 12 or you look at Iowa or Minnesota or Michigan State or whatever, and they're playing these schools that like don't have, it's all like farm boys and stuff. And if they can't hit their shots, they're not going to win. Versus Rutgers has to play, even an NJIT or whatever, where it's all Jersey guys. It's all like tougher, hard nosed basketball. And that's why these games end up being, it's not just like, yeah, on paper, should we beat St. Peter's by 20, 25 points? Yeah. But when the ball gets put on the court and you know, adrenaline gets pumping, it becomes a harder game. I don't know if you understand what I'm trying to say, or if you believe in that theory, but that's just my theory. Because you're
No,
not going to have
I
Northwest Missouri State come travel to New Jersey and play us.
Right. No, I definitely think you're onto something. It's just that identity that the New Jersey, New York area of basketball has, where it's like we work harder than you, we're going to out tough you, and that's something that Rutgers has built on too in their rebuild as well. It's just kind of ingrained in the culture of basketball in New Jersey and New York. I definitely think you're onto something, especially when you have these coaches like Shaheen Holloway, like Bashir Mason, who build their programs that way. They've built their programs everywhere they've been. And yeah, I definitely think you're onto something. And talking about Wagner, Donald Copeland as well. I think Grant Billmeyer's doing a really good job as well at NGIT in that program too. So it's just kind of yeah, I think you're definitely onto something there. Where it's just like the identity that these local area teams have, and just the area in general, including Rutgers, definitely plays a factor in some of these tough games because they're built to be physical and out tough you.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I guess we can look ahead now as Monmouth and Merrimack are the next two teams on the schedule. Like I said, Monmouth has not gotten off to the best start this season. They lost by over 25, I think, to Temple. I didn't have the exact score, but they also lost at the President's Center in Michigan State. Nothing too bad about that. That's about expected. But Monmouth comes in struggling. They're playing Northern Illinois tonight. I think that might be happening right now once again. But yeah, I mean, this Monmouth team is looking pretty interesting. Oh, I just checked. So Monmouth is down 14 with 3:20 to go. So it's looking like the Hawks will come in 0-3 to Jersey Mike's Arena on Friday night. Yeah, again, this is a really interesting Monmouth team because they have talent. They lost Xander Rice after he graduated. He played for his father under for a year after playing at Bucknell for 4 years. So I'm not sure how much you have on Monmouth. I've been able to watch a lot of their players in the Jersey Shore Basketball League, which unfortunately the level of defense is mostly AAU level, so you can't take away that much. But I've seen a lot of them play, and I'm interested to see them play at Rutgers.
Yeah, I'm going to defer to you on Monmouth's players because I can't tell you I've watched any of their basketball. I will say, I guess we could rename Monmouth the Monmouth Rutgers, the Carltown Senior rivalry, as Carltown Senior played basketball for Monmouth University in the mid '80s, I want to say, early to mid '80s. My mom went to Monmouth and was like friends with a couple guys on the basketball team, and then she left, and I think Carl came in, so just missed being connected to Carl in that way. But he he used to be an usher at where my seat is. Like the usher, like if you see where I sit, the usher sits right next to me. That used to
Hmm.
be Carl Senior when I was like an 8 year old. And he never mentioned to us that his son was like 6'10" or 6'5" when he was in sixth grade. Never mentioned to us. And all of a sudden I see a picture of Carl Jr. as like a 15-year-old with his dad, and I'm like, hold on, I know that guy. And I was like, I did the whole like, where do I know that guy from? It was the usher. So he played at Rutgers, or he played at Monmouth. He worked at Rutgers, and I'm going to call it the Carltown Senior Bowl because that's all I could think of.
Yeah, that's a
Um,
that's a good one. Yeah,
yeah,
it's now he's actually the head coach at St. Joe's again, so good for him on that. Where Carl Jr. went to school. Yeah, he took over
he
for
did.
them. Yeah,
I didn't
yeah, he
know.
took
Oh,
over.
okay. I didn't
This
know
is
that. I
his
knew he was doing like Passaic, not Passaic Tech, like Piscataway Tech or something. One of those like
yeah.
weird schools. But I guess that's cool. I didn't know he took over St. Joe's because the old St. Joe's coach now is at College of Chief, I think, right?
I
Or no,
think so.
no, no. The old St.
That's
Joe's
Roselle
coach is
Catholic.
Roselle Catholics at College Achieved. The old St. Joe's coach is Turco. Turco's brother was the Monroe coach. So never
Yeah.
mind. I knew there was a connection in there somewhere.
New Jersey high school sports, never a dull moment. Anyways, yeah. What was I talking about? Oh, right, Monmouth. Duh. Yeah, so they have not had Jarrett Valencia, one of their best rim protectors, so far this season. Let's see if I'm not sure if he played tonight against Northern Illinois. Let me
I think
see if I
that's the
can.
kid I asked about over the summer. I think I saw him on like draft boards. Like he was like he's a sophomore this year. He's a true freshman last year, right? He's like
Uh,
6'10",
yes, I believe
6'9".
so.
Okay.
He's from Colorado.
Oh, okay.
I will say King Rice has really brought in a lot of different guys.
Maybe he knows
Um,
Bayandungo.
Maybe, yeah. But yeah, they haven't. It doesn't look like he's played at all tonight. He doesn't have any stats registered, so I'm assuming he didn't play. But if he is not back, that's definitely a big loss for them. The matchup that I'm really excited for is the matchup of Abdi Bashir against Dylan Harper, who I think is who Rutgers is going to put on him. That's what I would do, honestly. If I were Steve Pikiell, I would put Dylan Harper and Abdi Bashir. Abdi Bashir is one of those guys where he came out of like the classic, like the AAU, EYBL. He went to Phoenix Prep. He's originally from Omaha. That kind of mold. He's 6'7", 160. So that is advantage Dylan Harper, I'll say, in that department, where you can put him on him. He's still a great athlete. Bashir is a really good shot maker. He can make shots from anywhere and everywhere, I would say. Um, in his career high, according to his bio at Monmouth, he had 24 points and 4 assists against Prolific Prep. Obviously, pretty impressive how good Prolific Prep is. But yeah, I would put Dylan Harper on Abdi Bashir if I'm Steve Pikiell because Dylan has what, like 20 or 30 pounds on him, I would say around there. And then you're not losing too much in the height department, and Dylan has a pretty good wingspan too. So I would say that that's the main matchup that I'm really excited for. They got some other good pieces too. Jack Collins is a solid piece. He's a good shooter, and he's one of those guys that's gonna kind of like we talked about with Jordan Durkak and Paul Mulcahy. He's gonna make those tough plays, make the hustle plays on the floor, things like that. Um,
Cool guy.
again, yeah, again, like I said, it's always tough to think about how these things translate to real basketball from the Jersey Shore Basketball League to now. Bashir does have 25 points tonight on 9 to 19 from the floor, 2 of 7 from three. Madison Durr is another interesting one. I believe he transferred in this year. He's another big shot taker and maker. Those two, I think it's going to be tough for Rutgers to manage those two for a full 40 minutes. But I'm really excited to see Bashir versus Dylan Harper. Bashir's one of those guys. He's lengthy, 6'7", like I said, 160, very wiry, thin guy, but he can really go up and shoot it, and he's a good athlete as well. So I think Dylan Harper will have the edge in that matchup, but Bashir's going to take a lot of shots, and there's a good chance he makes them.
Well, you know what Jared Valencia not playing yet means for Rutgers, right?
What does that mean?
That means he's going to debut on Friday, and he's going to have 14 points, 11 rebounds, 4 blocks, and go 3 of 3 from the free throw line and hit a miracle 3-pointer to keep the game close late. Because that just is what always happens in Rutgers athletics.
Yeah, you're right. I mean, looking back to last year, it was like Efton Reed at Wake Forest got cleared a day before Rutgers game, goes off for a double-double. Terrence Shannon Jr.'s suspension ends conveniently when Rutgers comes to town. It's just how it goes. But I'm really, honestly, I'm not sure. I'm gonna see if I can find anything else on if on Jared Valencia and if he will be back.
Maybe he has a hip
Because
flexor injury.
maybe just ask anyone about that. Um, let's
I
see.
think it's Jared Valencia's handlers don't want him to play against Rutgers. It might hurt his draft stock, so that's why
Yeah,
he's
I'm
not.
sure. Oh, yeah, definitely. Yeah, so Valencia, he is a sophomore. Okay, so he's not from Colorado. Actually, I misread the abbreviation. He's from Columbia.
Ah,
But from what I could see, he's a solid rim protector. He played for Monmouth last year as well, so he's
I
second
guess
year
Monmouth
guy.
basketball's new moniker is Jersey Roots, Global Reach.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, they got a lot of guys from a lot of different places. Like I said, Abdi Bashir, a native of Nebraska. Um, it's really going to be an interesting matchup. And then I guess we can look ahead to Merrimack as well. That's going to be a really interesting matchup because you got Jordan Durkak facing his old team, Joe Gallo, slow the ball down 2-3 zone. I mean, that's going to be a really interesting matchup as well.
Joey Gallo, the old right fielder for the New York Yankees. No, I'm kidding. Yeah, that Merrimack game is one of those that I don't want to say it scares me, but we saw what happened at the rack a couple of years ago when they came in with their 2-3 zone. Um, it's like can Dylan Ace, PJ Hayes, and Zach Martini shoot him out of the zone? Hopefully, but it's also we have a young team, a team that hasn't played together, and a 2-3 zone can be you know a vice grip for this guy for these guys.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm very interested to see how that goes. So, yeah, Ken Pom projects an 83-64 Rutgers win uh, against Monmouth and then a 74-60 win for Rutgers against Merrimack. Merrimack is 178 in Ken Pom, and yeah, I mean they lose the conference player of the year. They're in a new conference now. They're in the MAC instead of the NEC, which is basically a Division two conference at this point, unfortunately. They don't shoot a lot of threes and they don't get a lot of assists, so I don't know if that helps Rutgers in that regard. Then again, knowing how things go, like you said, they'll shoot the lights out against Rutgers on next week. But yeah, I
Is the
think
NEC? Are you saying the NEC is D2 or the MAC?
the NEC is basically D2 at this point,
Oh,
considering half of the conference is new new programs moving up from D2, and a lot of the good programs are leaving. I respect the MAC though. I love me some MAC basketball.
yeah. Well, the NEC, it's like a stepping stone in D1. Like, all
Yeah.
right, you graduate into D1. It's like, all right, you got to go through the swamp first to get the real D1. And then, so you win your conference, you get to play Texas Southern in the 16-16 game, or Arkansas Pine Bluff. So it's the NEC versus what's that, the SWAC.
Yeah, the
Um,
swag.
and then, if you're a Northeast team, you join the NEC. If you're anywhere below the Mason-Dixon line, you join the SWAC. And then you go from there. If you graduate from
Or
there, you become the D1 program.
or the MEAC. Don't forget
The
about the
MEAC.
MEAC.
That's what like is that with Howard and Norfolk State, all the HBCUs.
Yeah.
Yeah, but no, those teams are usually like a step up, I feel like. I
I
think
thought I know Howard got the first four game.
well they also have like that Alcorn. No, where's that? They have like Coppin State, or is that?
Coppin State is a complete disaster right now.
Yeah. Did they fire
I
their
ca
coach? Didn't they have like a?
Yes, they
Did
had a
they have,
big scandal. They fired Juan Dixon.
okay.
I didn't even realize until I like read that whole thing that Juan Dixon was their head coach, like the Maryland Juan Dixon.
Yeah.
It's crazy stuff. But anyways, we are getting way off track.
Speaking
Um,
of speaking of controversies with Florida and whatever's going on there, I was hoping we can get a mid-year transfer of Ruben Chinyelu. That he's just going to be he's going to be the white what's it, the white whale or whatever, the Moby, what was Garrett Cole to the Yankees? Is it the white
the
whale?
yeah, basically.
Yeah, he's going to be the guy we never get. But anyway,
There's
we can continue on.
there's always one of those. Yeah, I mean, that's the next two games. Obviously, Kennesaw State looms ahead as well, and then you're in Vegas 2 days later. I'm very interested to see how some of these minutes get managed, especially in the Kennesaw State game, considering again, you basically have to fly out to Las Vegas right after that. You play 2 days later. Yeah, I'm curious to see how that goes. The Kennesaw State game kind of, I'm not gonna say I'm worried, but I'm intrigued because I mean they're not a great team, obviously, but it's on the road. You don't see a lot of bye games on the road. Um, so yeah, I'm very curious. They play very fast. They are ranked second in the country in adjusted tempo per Ken Palm. I know I'm quoting Ken Palm a lot, but it's early in the season, so still trying to get my bearings on everything. They play very fast. So I'm curious to see how Rutgers handles that, especially considering, like I said, the Vegas tournament that looms 2 days after that.
Yeah. It's one of those. I feel like it's a trap game. But you got to get through. You got to get through Merrimack. Got to get through Monmouth. Got to get through Kennesaw. If you can go 5-0 into Vegas. Hopefully, we beat Notre Dame. Our boy in the dynasty, Walt, big Notre Dame fan. He's very high on Notre Dame and thinks we're going to lose to Notre Dame. Which I said, listen, if Rutgers beats Notre Dame and Seton Hall this year, it's a success for me because I got two guys. He's a Notre Dame fan. Another guy in our dynasty is a Seton Hall fan. I want to shut them up for 1 year, so that's all I want to get through. Um, but and then we got to run it. If we can go 6-0 going into Houston, going into Alabama, We're playing with house money, and we play
Yeah.
Cliff, which what frustrates me. I watched Alabama, Arkansas State. Cliff does not post up at all. They do not let
Funny.
him post up at all. He sits in the corner or he rolls off a screen.
Funny. That's
But we
interesting.
couldn't get him to do that here, right?
Yeah, such is life in college basketball. I'm very curious to see how Steve Pikiell battles that. I think we're going to see a lot more Martini at the five in that game in particular than we will for maybe the rest of the season.
Yeah. Well, if you have Cliff sitting out in the corner, you don't have to worry about it. But the only problem is if he just jumps over Martini on all the pick and rolls. So that'll be the
Oh, yeah, it's going to be a very intriguing matchup. I guess we'll probably be back either after Merrimack or after Kennesaw State to preview those games more in depth.
yeah.
Um,
Are you
yeah, I
flying out
guess
to Vegas?
I I will not be out in Vegas, unfortunately.
I'm
Too
not either. I
much.
wish.
Yeah, too much for me. I'm debating going to Kennesaw. I guess we'll have to wait and see on that. I don't know, see how those plans kind of formulate themselves. I don't
Is it a
know.
week?
It'd be an interesting
Is it
one.
a weekend game?
It's a Sunday 1 p.m. tip-off. The problem is Rutgers football plays against Illinois the day before. So if I want to do both, which I don't think I would be able to do both reasonably, I would have to either get a very early flight on Sunday morning or a very late flight on Saturday night. So I don't know.
Well, the noon game, you can get like a 6 p.m. fight.
Yeah, the noon kickoff definitely makes me feel better about it, but we'll see. Yeah, we'll be back to preview some of those games coming up farther. I guess do you have any closing thoughts before we sign off on this one?
Uh, I thought my last thought, and I said this to a couple people. I might have said it to you. I'm 80% sure that Pikel ran salute, and it worked, and it worked. But there's one caveat. He ran it to Dylan. Dylan caught the ball in the middle of a triple team, and then somehow scored. That is not a successful play. That is Dylan being a top three draft pick and somehow making it work.
Yeah, I would agree with you there. Well, I guess we'll have to see if they try to do that more when Dylan doesn't get triple team when Ace comes back. I guess we'll have to wait and see.
But the exact reason why I've said the play doesn't work is what happened. This weak side defender read it, came all the way across the court, and he just overcommitted or over pursued it, and that's why it didn't work. But that's my only closing.
Well, that's the benefit of having an NBA lottery pick at your disposal. I guess my final thought is again, I think this team's gonna be fine. Um, if there was any panic after the St. Peter's game, stop it. I think they'll be fine. Once they get their other top three draft pick back, they'll be okay. Again, they're getting everything these local teams have. At one point that Richie brought up, it's like a lot of these kids are local, so they want to show it to Steve Pikiell and just say, you didn't want me, well, take this, and so that's what's gonna happen in some of these local games. But yeah, they'll be fine, I think. As long as they stay the course with a lot of the performers that they've had early on, I think they'll be fine. But yeah, that'll do it for another episode of the Pikes Place podcast. Again, be sure to follow along on Spotify and on YouTube and everywhere else for more episodes. We'll be back probably after the Merrimack game to wrap up those two games and preview the gauntlet of the schedule coming up. But again, thanks for watching and listening this far, and we'll see you next time.